It's time to die in 3, 2, 1, let's get it. Come in if you dare.
Hello. Welcome. This is going to be different. Ignore my wet clothes. It is raining. Today, we're going to hang out and explore a little bit of some opinionated stuff. That seems incorrect. You'll see what we're going to do here. This is going to be a video essay format where I speak on certain things that I want to explore. Today's topic: messaging in film. I know we're typically a writer show, Braden and I, we do the podcast, but I think messaging in film is one of the most important things in film, because there's a message or a lesson learned at the end of every film. Whether the artist wants there to be or not. So today, we're going to talk about just messaging in film. And I want to we're going to cover a topic that I feel has been talked about a bit more recently. Of course, I'm a little late, but there's a lot of debate on the idea of wokeism in film. Well, woke, according to Merriam-Webster, is defined as aware of and actively attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of race and social justice. Of course, by this definition, we probably all should be woke. We all want everybody to be treated good. That's what I think. This has kind of been what I have seen recently in movies. There's debate of what is good for a movie and what is not in terms of wokeism. How much do we need to put in there? What is good for a story, what is bad for a story. To be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting like a gay person in a movie. That's perfectly fine. I mean, same with all of the other races and sexualities. I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. So why is it a debate? Well, I think that kind of jumps back into a little bit of my intro. The way the message is gone about. The first film I want to talk about here, we're going to go through a bunch of different films, but this first one, Spike Lee's BlackkKlansman. It's about a black detective who infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan in, I believe, the 1970s. The premise is actually already hilarious to me. It is based on a true story, and it is a remarkable story. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of messages in, racism is bad. I think we kind of all know that, and it does go into a more deeper message there. But towards the end of the movie, by the way, spoiler warning for all of these films, because we're going to go kind of in depth in kind of the endings a bit. The end of this movie, at least when I saw it in the theater, showcased a compilation of modern day events, things like rioting, and I think Trump was giving a speech at one point in the film, and it's I believe it's around in the credits area, and it shows us. The goal is to show us, these things are still happening today. I am a big believer in not directly telling an audience the message. to me, this is, well, it's a good message. I do agree with the message. You know, we need to do our part to kind of prevent any social injustice from occurring, especially with like minorities and people that are oppressed. But where my problem is I've always been a big believer in almost hiding the message. I like to think of it as, this is a movie we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but I like to incept the audience. In my own work, I talk about it, I create events that kind of are relatable and are very plausible for the real world, and I think to me, it's like if you can show problems within your story, maybe the side of the spectrum that isn't on the side of, equality, maybe they'll at least move to the middle. Whereas if you tell them directly, like Spike Lee did, there's a chance where they're going to be like, oh, that doesn't happen today, this is bogus, and this isn't, oh, this is terrible. But there's two sides to this argument. Because it might just fly right over their head entirely. In one ear, out the other. They may not even understand, if, in this case, that African Americans are oppressed in today's world. It's very possible. And I would actually believe that. So there's two sides to this argument. So we're going to move on to our next film. This one, it doesn't have any real political message, but this is Chris Nolan's Inception. To me, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, by the way. So to me, Chris Nolan's Inception, again, spoiler warning, you should go check out some of these movies that we mentioned. I'll tell you which one that probably isn't. One of these movies I actually haven't seen, but I know enough about it. But with Chris Nolan's Inception, the end of the movie it's almost cliffhanger, and the question isn't answered. This is a movie about a man who has been separated from his children because his deceased wife framed him for her murder, which is, that's already a lot to take in. But there is a supernatural element where he is able to go into other people's dreams, and that's like it's not just him. It's anybody can do it if they have the right equipment. So he specializes in heisting information from people's brains, which is really cool. So the whole thing with the movie is he takes a job from a very powerful CEO, and they get on a plane. The job is to trick somebody into thinking they came up with an idea. And if it's successful, the man gets to go home and he gets to see his kids again. Because the CEO is powerful enough to get the charges dropped. And that's the entire kind of plot. It's a very complicated movie and it's hard to summarize. I do recommend you check it out. The whole time he has this top and he's spinning it and he's taking a look to make sure, and if it topples over, he's not in the dream world. So the movie ends with him spinning the top, but then he walks away to check on his kids, and the cliffhanger here is we don't know if the top topples over or not. And that's been a debate with this film. Is he in the dream or is he not in the dream? And so that brings us back to the message, which is to me, this is all my opinion, by the way. None of this is facts. It's all art. We're all kind of talking subjectively. So the message to me is maybe the dream life isn't what it seems to be. Maybe it's something to the effect of like, oh, well, there's problems we're not seeing. Not every... Like a famous Transformer says, it's more than meets the eye or whatever. So that's another example. But that's the thing is I'm interpreting the art. I'm not told a message. I'm looking at what I've seen for the whole, I believe, 2.5 hour runtime or whatever. and I'm interpreting the message that it is providing me. Now, this is different with Spike Lee's, and it's only because he has a montage of modern day footage that really isn't even part of the story. It's just saying, this is the message we wanted to convey. So Spike Lee went direct. Chris Nolan was more kind of just indirect. He was making art to be interpreted. He was not wanting to tell a message. We're going to move on to the one I haven't seen. Disney's Snow White remake. My personal reasons for not seeing this film is I keep hearing terrible things about it, and it's got so much controversy that I'm just like, there's no way a good story came out of it. There are several controversies within this movie. Disney, more recently, has wanted to focus on inclusivity. There is nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great idea. But they are doing it to the point where they're almost getting... They're worried so much about inclusivity that they're focusing their stories around it, which I think can become preachy. Well, you know, Spike Lee had his montage at the end of his film. So what's kind of the difference here? The difference is there are things that Disney does, for instance, like She-Hulk, where they're kind of preaching to the audience the entire time instead of entertaining. It's fine to, you know, give out a message, give out a lesson, but if the story is nothing but a message, that's fine. But when you're, like with She-Hulk, she's a comic book character that is beloved by comic book fans. They are expecting a portrayal that is accurately representative of the comics. If they had made an original story that was standalone, maybe things could have turned out differently, but they were catering to an audience that really was looking to be entertained, and it's hard to do that when your message is being preached all around. So, now circling back to Snow White, the original Snow White was Disney's, I believe, first animated movie, way back several decades ago. It was Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Now, the bit of controversy I'm going to touch on here is that Disney's original Seven Dwarves were not the Seven Dwarves. Hi there, this is Editor Cole here. Bit confusing in my talking here, but when I'm talking about how the dwarves aren't the original Seven Dwarves, I'm talking about how their plans when they were remaking it. Obviously, the original movie in 1937 had the Seven Dwarves. So I'm just kind of clearing stuff up. A lot of this essay is me kind of rambling a little bit, so I'm just kind of getting those thoughts out there. So there's a few kind of mistakes, and I'm just trying to kind of go through and make sure that some of them are kind of cleared up. And if you find more, you can leave a comment about a question maybe, and I will see that it is righted in maybe the description or something. But anyway, back to your regularly scheduled program. They were a bunch of different minorities and sexualities, I believe. And this made people upset. I mean, they're changing a story to be more inclusive, but does that take away? Does that add to it? I think people are tired of the idea of just replacing an entire character with maybe a new origin, new personality, and it's like, oh, that's not the character anymore. I don't mind when that happens, but it's gotta be done correctly. Now, I personally don't like doing that all the time, but I've seen a few times where I'm like, all right, they made that character so much better. I think it would be better to just, we want to make a character like a superhero that is transgender. Let's do that. Let's make it original. Let's create a whole thing around it, and let's make a movie about it. And that would be great. I think that would be great. I don't think we should be changing characters that already exist. So when Snow White changes their 7 dwarves into these 7 other people that we've never heard of, I think people were kind of like, well, you've killed, like we say in the podcast, like you've killed this baby, and we want to see these live action versions of the dwarves. And so the next thing Disney did, which I'm not sure what they could have done else, I guess, being that it was already shot, but they essentially deleted those new original characters that replaced the dwarves and replaced them with CGI dwarves. This is kind of where I'm like, okay. What I would have done had I made Snow White is I would have probably gone more Lord of the Rings style, or like The Hobbit, and kind of made live action, short people, I guess. But, they wanted to do the diversity route, and the audience said no. Now, could that have turned out good? I don't know if we'll ever know, because we never saw what that would look like. But even with the changes that they made, Snow White came out and it was very different from the original, and the audience still ultimately rejected it. Disney lost, I think, millions, or if not billions. So I think people are tired of being slammed with one message that almost replaces the plot. So far, we've gone over Spike Lee's Klansman, which had a small message toward the end. It got everything across. It's very direct, tells the audience, hey, this is still happening. We need to take care of this. Chris Nolan's is more like a painting in an art gallery. You interpret it. That's your message. It's personal to you. Maybe you have a similar message that you got out of it from somebody else. Maybe you can be best friends, whatever. Disney, with Snow White and several other projects, they take their plot and oversaturate it with messages that they want their audience to absorb. And I think that's kind of our disconnect here, is we have 2 ways where messaging is great, and one way where the messaging is kind of, it's a bit much. And to be clear, I'm not talking about the topic of the messaging, I'm talking about the way the messaging is delivered. Because, yeah, we should be able to create a diverse cast of people. I don't see anything wrong with that. But if it's replacing story elements, I think we need to kind of, hold the break. Unless the story, to be fair, is about that. Where it's like, we're going to talk about, like, a gay couple's difficulties in society. If that is what the story is, and it's talking about how a gay couple overcomes discrimination, then that's fine. But I think if we're doing a very separate story, the goal should be to entertain first, if it's a fictional story especially, and messaging second, which is typically what I follow in my rule set. So, Spike Lee's BlackkKlansman, Chris Nolan's Inception, and Disney's Snow White. We have one more movie. Ford versus Ferrari. This is a movie about it takes place in the late 60s, about Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby, and they work with Ford to make the GT40 and then take it to Le Mans and win. This sounds like a very car-based movie, but it's surprisingly people-focused. So it's very good. I recommend it. This movie is very similar to Chris Nolan's Inception, whereas it is art that is being displayed and you can interpret it multiple ways. But it is slightly more direct, in my opinion. In the intro, and a few other times in this film, they talk about how There's nothing like feeling 7,000 RPM. To me, again, it's art. You can interpret it differently. To me, it speaks like you should live life kind of like, you know, it's the last day of your life every day. You need to live life and kind of just do it any way you want. Make sure you're as happy as you can be. And that's kind of how it felt to me. And so what's different here is they aren't directly telling you a message-ish. Because the character is telling you, oh, this feeling is like no other. Which is directly telling you something, but that something can be interpreted in many different ways. So, does this work compared to something like the Snow White thing? I think it does, because it is it has multiple interpretations, and it's not necessarily preaching you anything. It's just saying, hey, you should maybe explore this idea of, in my case, how life should be lived. And it's just kind of it's messaging can create a theme, and that's what this is doing here. Is it's creating a theme for the whole movie, and you see these characters feel this feeling multiple times throughout the whole thing. So it's creating a different way of kind of relaying this message to the audience. So, what have we learned? Let's see. Spike Lee's BlackkKlansman. You can deliver a message. It's not preaching the whole time. It's actually towards the end. It's entirely optional, essentially. Chris Nolan's Inception. It's art, can be interpreted no matter whichever way you want, and it's doing its own thing. Disney's Snow White. It is a ride you sit down for and you listen to a lot more overarching kind of listen to our message the entire time. Ford versus Ferrari. Very similar to Cars even, the Pixar movie, but they kind of bring up an idea a few times in the movie that is directly connected to the plot, and that is the message as well. Why does Disney's kind of method fail? I think it fails, personally, because when we sit down to watch a movie, sometimes we want to escape from reality. Sometimes we want to, maybe we want to feel a certain emotion, maybe like a scary movie. Maybe we want to feel scared, because sometimes, that's fun sometimes. Maybe we want to laugh at something. 99% of the time, with me and my circle, rarely do we want to be preached to and manipulated to believe a certain idea. And that's kind of why I think Disney's Snow White failed. And honestly, it's why I'm not the biggest fan of BlackkKlansman in their very final segment. Because before that segment, I was already kind of having the realization where I was like, man, this is happening today, and I probably do need to, do something. But they added that last little bit, and I was just kind of like, well, okay, you don't need to directly kind of tell me that. But again, there's two sides to every argument, and this is all just my opinion, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Again, I'm focused on the messaging. Obviously, I do agree with what all four of these things are saying. Even the Snow White thing, where it's like, okay, yeah, we should, another message in that movie, I believe, was, women are people too, which, yes, obviously, that's duh. But yeah, the inclusivity Disney is wanting is the correct answer, but I think they need to find a different way to relay their message. And maybe that even lies with new original things. I do think that the Snow White remake also failed because people are probably tired of the different movies being remade. I mean, Lion King's been remade. Beauty and the Beast has been remade. They're remaking all of their old stuff, and it's starting to feel like they don't have any new good ideas. Although Pixar, I think, is still slam dunking everything that they're doing. So hopefully they continue doing that. But this isn't a debate on is woke good. This is just kind of the more relevant thing as of late that I wanted to kind of touch on. The thing we need to focus on is how do we create a better society in terms of delivering a message that could be woke, that could be something else, like Ford versus Ferrari or Inception. Maybe it's more about life, you know? If we want to teach our audience a lesson, we need to focus on our delivery and make sure that our story is kind of going to cater to our genres, our characters that we're using, and again, I'm a huge believer in plot first, messaging second, and I do that usually because the messaging naturally usually just comes right in there. If you focus on the messaging first and you write a plot around that, I personally have had trouble creating a better plot around that, surrounding that idea. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. There's a really great story, The Whale, which is about... it's got Brendan Fraser in it, and he's a larger fellow, but he left his wife because he realized he was gay, and it created this very, very powerful story. It didn't necessarily focus on the gay pieces, which is fine also, but it did... I mean, it was the whole reason that the plot was kind of able to work, was that he was gay, and that was who he was, and yeah. Again, if you agree, if you disagree, we got a comment section. I only ask that we don't yell at each other. We just kind of... let's discuss this. Let's create conversation. And I encourage, tell me I'm wrong, because I am known as the idiot on the channel. So let's talk about it. You know, let's start a conversation. Maybe Disney's onto something. Maybe they just haven't figured out the right formula for it. Maybe there's a way to do that. So that's kind of gonna do it for this first video essay. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed, learned something, maybe get the brain juices flowing a little bit. Yeah, feel free to leave a comment, dislike, like, whatever. If you like it a lot, I can, try and work on more of these. If you dislike it, let me know why you dislike it, because, and if that is just my opinion, you're more than welcome to disagree with my opinion, that's fine. Feel free to subscribe, check us out, check out the podcast. We're making moves in the podcast with the feature film stuff. So I'll see you guys either in the next podcast or in the next one of these. Yay!